that a very important piece of legal advice around whether the war was strictly legal or not in terms of international law, that Jonathan Pole, Blair's chief of staff, told his senior civil servant to burn it. That is a pretty damning allegation, isn't it?
It is, and one that Jonathan Powell completely denies. And I've known Jonathan for years and years and years. He is a public servant. He wouldn't lie about that. He wouldn't have said to do that. More interestingly, actually, is the silence in the coverage of this, and maybe it's in Jeff's book, that the armed forces get their own legal advice on the targets they choose. They have to be signed off by lawyers and then sometimes by ministers. So our armed forces don't get involved in illegal wars because they take their own legal advice. I met the lawyers. I was an advisor in MOD.
The armed forces may well take advice, legal advice, on what is a legitimate target and what is not. I don't doubt that for one moment. The question here are not the actions of the military and whatever advice they received. The question here is, did Prime Minister Blair and those around him take the military and take this country to war on something that was a lie? I mean, sexed up was the term that the Chilcot inquiry used. Did he take the country to war on a lie at a huge cost? Because that is what those 750,000 signatories are saying.
No, I understand that. And I think, look, there's only one person who is responsible for the Iraq war in the end. One man alone, and that's Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein refused to allow United Nations weapons inspectors into the country. He refused, in the face of an ultimatum from the United Nations, an ultimatum which was backed by the threat of force. In the face of those things, if the United Nations issue an ultimatum to back up its inspectors, you have two choices. One is go, oh, fair enough, the dictator's not happy with us. That's okay. And then have nothing you can ever say again to any country to enforce weapons inspection, or you...
He's gone. Well, I think we'd heard what John McTernan had to say. He believes that Blair was in the right in terms of what happened in Iraq, and that he should, absolutely should, be Sir Tony Blair, which is how the newspapers are styling him already. I look forward to reading out some of your comments after the break, after which I'm going to talk to a rabbi who has quit the BBC over, and I quote, its inexcusable reporting of an anti-Semitic attack.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It is getting cold out there. It's going to be frosty tonight and frosty in the morning. A few fog patches as well. Wet weather then spreads east tomorrow with some snow mixed in, mostly over the hills. That's courtesy of this area of low pressure, but it's not with us yet. A bump in the isobars, a ridge of high pressure, meaning clear skies, and those winds continuing to ease down. So light winds, clear skies this time of night means a frost, a widespread frost forming already, and temperatures are only going to continue to fall. There'll be some fog patches forming as well, of course, parts of the Midlands and southern England too. But the main thing will be those temperatures below freezing, even in towns and cities, well below in rural spots. So a very cold start to Thursday, and then things turn wet across Northern Ireland, some snow on the hills, and then as this wet weather arrives across Scotland, some significant snow likely on the higher routes here, also across parts of Northern England. Some of the higher routes not very pleasant for a time through the course of tomorrow afternoon. We'll turn back to rain as we go through the day. Mostly rain at low levels and across the southwest, where it will actually eventually get to double figures. But East Anglia in the southeast staying cold, but largely dry until the rain pushes in here late afternoon into the evening. It's going to be followed by showers, and those showers turning wintry once more. So we do have another Met Office yellow warning for snow and ice from Thursday evening into Friday morning across northwest England, parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. The snow could really start to build up here, and as temperatures Won't be as low, but still getting close to freezing. Could lead to some icy conditions, particularly for Friday morning's commute as the showers continue to come in. Mostly rain at low levels and on the coast, but certainly over any kind of smallish hills, we will see some snow building up during Friday morning in those showers. Scattering of showers elsewhere, but for many central and the eastern parts, Friday dry and bright with sunny spells, but it will be cold. Temperatures again below average and feeling colder with the wind.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
$750,000 people have signed a petition saying Tony Blair should not get a knighthood. And we've just debated it with two well-known figures. Now it's your turn. Should he get a knighthood? Pippa says, no, of course not. Check out the petition. Yet, just because lots of people have signed it doesn't necessarily mean they're right. Jess says he's already got a knighthood. Done deal. It's how the system works, paving the way for the next batch of elites, says one cynic. Another one says to me, there is no way he should receive any award from Her Majesty. It's a terrible mistake the Queen has made. And this was a point John McTernan made, that the Queen is coming under quite a lot of criticism over this. Malcolm says, Blair's honour is an insult to democracy. Pauline says, a simple solution would be if Blair turned down the knighthood, thereby relieving the Queen of this embarrassment. That would be a gentlemanly and chivalrous sign of respect. And it's the Order of the Garter in particular, I think, that perhaps has got people upset. The knighthood kind of comes with it. Now, a story that broke overnight that quite surprised me. A BBC regular over the course of the last 30 years or so, Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein, and he's been a regular broadcaster on the BBC and Radio 4's Today programme, Thought for the Day, and many other things. And he has, after 30 years, written a letter to the BBC, and he's quit. He's had enough, he says. Inexcusable coverage from the corporation of an anti-Semitic attack that wrongly accused the victims of making Islamophobic slurs. Well, we'll talk more about that incident, and it was a pretty ugly, nasty incident. But I'm very pleased to be joined by Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein. Good afternoon to you.
Oh, well, good afternoon. Or good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us and making the time. Now, you were actually rather popular on the BBC. Your Thought for the Days were listened to by some really rather important people. I think somebody actually that we've been mentioning already in this show. I understand perhaps even Her Majesty the Queen might have been one of your fans.
Well, Her Majesty, bless her, came to Manchester about 15 years ago, and she spent the morning with the Jewish community. And she was presented to the president of the community and shook hands and said, "Is Rabbi YY here?" To which he rather embarrassedly said, "No, ma'am." Said, "Oh, what a pity. We think he's awfully good, and we listen all the time on the radio." So, yeah, I suppose I must have had some success on the BBC.
Yeah, you must have done. You must have done. Now, the BBC is our national state broadcaster, not as popular in many quarters as it once was, and its neutrality, of course, has been questioned repeatedly over the last few years. Just very quickly, tell us about this incident and the way that you feel the BBC reported it.
Well, first of all, you're 100% right. The neutrality of the BBC is always up for debate. My 30 years there, it's club. It's a membership thing. And a symbol of membership is absolutely required reading of The Guardian. And you see people wandering about the BBC canteen
Yes.
all the time
Yes.
with their Guardians under there. You know this.
I do.
Then, I mean, you might get away with reading the Times, but if you're a Telegraph reader, you're toast. You have no career. You will now find your new position is working in the BBC bar as the dartboard. That's about it. The BBC certainly has a culture, and the culture is woke, left-wing, and always has been. Now, there's the old debate, can you separate your politics from your objective reporting? Not convinced.
Well, no.
I've been able...
And this particular incident, Rabbi, this was a group of Jewish kids on a bus feeling threatened by people outside, and the BBC reporting, which you described as inexcusable, suggested that the Jewish children had made racial slurs.
Yeah, even more than that, the kids celebrating a Jewish festival were on the pavement doing a wee bit of a dance. I was surrounded by, and apparently as Muslim guys, giving Nazi salutes, F the Jews, Palestine. These are just a bunch of Jewish kids. Nothing, no, they're not Israelis. They're not Zionists. Nobody's interviewed them. They said flee on the bus. The guy started attacking the bus. The BBC first reported it. There were anti-Muslim slurs from the kids, plural. They withdrew that, turned it into one claim that one of the kids made an anti-Muslim slur. This is after the guys are telling F you and Sieg Heil, etc. And this has been now analysed by a forensic voice expert who says that's not true. The BBC should have apologised, should have said we got it wrong, but it very rarely does. But in this case, it was critical that it did, because its relationship with the Jewish community is in tatters as a consequence. And having been there for 30 years, worked with some superb people, I had to say goodbye.
Well, was it just this incident, or do you feel there is perhaps a bias, a pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli bias that is there within BBC News broadcast?
I don't think there's the slightest doubt of that one. You don't spend tens of thousands of pounds fighting the release of your own internal inquiry into your own that showed prejudice of exactly that type, unless it exists within the BBC. And having worked there for 30 years, I can give you many incidents that show that. However,
these are very serious charges. You've said what you've said with great passion. You will be missed on the Today programme, but I'm sure you're going to pop up somewhere else pretty soon. Rabbi Rubenstein, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And the BBC, in response, have said, we are sorry to hear of Rabbi YY Rubenstein's decision, as he has always provided thoughtful and compassionate contributions to our programmes, which have been deeply appreciated by our listeners. Anti-Semitism is abhorrent, and we strive to serve the Jewish community and all communities across the UK fairly. Very, very interesting. Now, there has been today some pretty remarkable events, I think, in Bristol. 4 people And this is about the toppling of the Colston statue, which took place on the 7th of June, 2020. You remember what happened. The statue was torn down and thrown into Bristol Dock. Why? Because Colston, who'd been a very major benefactor to Bristol, theatres named after him, schools, goodness knows what else, because he was a very rich man. But he'd become a very rich man because he was a very big slave trader. And there had been a lot of controversy around the naming of buildings and the statue, and it had been going on for some years. That's the background. But today in court, 4 people, Rhiannon Graham, Milo Ponsford, Sage Willoughby, and Jack Skews, have all been cleared of criminal damage over the toppling of the Edward Colston statue in Bristol at the Black Lives Matter protest on June 7, 2020. The defendants admitted their involvement but denied their actions were criminal, claiming the statue itself had been a hate crime against the people of Bristol. The jury agreed. So all 4 are innocent of the charges laid against them. I just want to say, this sets the most astonishing, worrying precedent for those who wish to get involved in direct action. Yes, I understand that Colston was a slave trader, but what next? Is any public monument or building safe on the back of this judgment? I think it's very, very worrying indeed. And while we're talking about Black Lives Matter, well, just to say the movement have achieved considerable success in the United States of America. Yes, several cities on the back of their protest have significantly cut police budgets. Remember, defunding the police is one of the main aims of BLM. And the results have been spiraling rates of serious crime and murder. That's the Black Lives Matter movement for you. And I am still astonished that so many sporting and corporate people think it's something that we should somehow applaud. I don't. Now, what the Farage moment here. President Macron. Well, this is absolutely astonishing. In response to an interview, he said he wants to pee off France's unvaccinated in denying them access to even more aspects of daily life. Yes, the French president's inflammatory comments came as the government seeks to punish, through parliamentary legislation, people who haven't got a vaccine. They want to make it compulsory if you're to enjoy cultural activities, to use an intercity train, to visit a cafe from January the 15th. No longer is it possible to have a recent test to say that you're negative, to live any sort of a normal life in France if, probably when, this legislation passes. He did this interview with Le Parisien, put online Tuesday night, and this is a direct quote from the French head of state. As for the non-vaccinated, I really want to pee them off, and we will continue to do this to the end. This is the strategy, he said. Macron added this would mean, and I quote, limiting as much as possible their access to activities in social life. He even said, when my freedom threatens that of others, I become an irresponsible person. An irresponsible person is not a citizen. They are truly astonishing words. I have to say, Macron is a ghastly little man. I met him, saw these big built-up shoes, didn't trust him from that moment onwards. And another, what the Farage moment. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, was not in the Commons. He's tested positive for a second time. Clearly the booster not working for Sir Keir. He's now isolating, and of course Angela Rayner stood in the House of Commons. But it's really extraordinary because Sir Keir tested positive for this in October and missed the budget as a result. And previously, he's had to isolate 4 times, having been pinged, having come into contact with somebody else. Now, this is extraordinary. And we know that Omicron, it's there, and 218,000 2 days ago contracted it. Interestingly, he hasn't got any symptoms, but he is isolating. But the most remarkable thing about all of this, and it was pointed out by the Guido Fawkes website, who do some great work, and they said that based on 2 positive tests and 4 pings, Starmer has now spent 57 days in self-isolation since the start of the pandemic. And 57 days is the same length as the main London Blitz during the war. Well done, Guido Fawkes. They always bring a smile. In a moment, Joe Valente, winner of The Apprentice in 2015, serial entrepreneur, will join me for Talking Pints.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
The GB News pub is open. Yes, it is Talking Pints. And I want to introduce you to my guest. Now, he won The Apprentice in 2015, that Alan Sugar programme. You know the one, You're Fired. Let's have a look at Joe Valente winning The Apprentice.
Technology has been my best friend for over 50 years, but maybe it's time to make new friends. Joseph, you are going to be my business partner.
Joe Valente, welcome to Talking Pints.
Thank you, Nigel. Cheers. Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's still just about Happy New Year, isn't it?
Thanks for having me down. It's quite emotional watching that clip, actually. Every time I see it, it sort of gets me right there.
Well, I bet it does, because you say yourself that you came from a very modest background with no particular advantages.
Yep.
And first question I'm going to ask you, what did you get expelled from school for?
I really hated authority, I think. And actually, that's gone on to serve me quite well as an entrepreneur. The teacher wanted me to do it their way, and I wanted to do it my way. So I really struggled with being graded on subjects that I already knew that I wasn't any good at. You know, there's no point telling me I'm a failure at art when I know I can only draw stickmen. So I kind of didn't really get why the institution was trying to train me up in that way, and I didn't like it, and I wanted to leave, and I wanted to go hang around with my friends and skive, and that's exactly what I chose to do.
So they asked you to leave?
Yeah, they asked me to leave, yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, there are people that get expelled from school and don't do well in life.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, there are quite a lot of successful entrepreneurs who just don't kind of fit in to the normal constraints. So you're out of school, but you decide you want to get out. And I read that you actually read a book of Alan Sugar's. And this is part of your, because you were an apprentice plumber, that was the trade that you were learning. But somehow Alan Sugar intervened before.
Yeah, no, this was fast forward when I was 22 years of age. I just came back from Australia. I'd read Lord Sugar's book, and that's what made me quit my 50 grand a year gas engineer job, take out a £15,000 Tesco loan, and start a business with no plan, no strategy, no knowledge or acumen.
Why did they lend you the money?
Because I took it out as a home development loan, a home improvement loan, and used it for the business on the back of the salary. Sorry, Tesco's, but that's what I did.
Folks, advocating any of this. But
I raised the finance that way, which was great. But, you know, to just rewind to a point that you were saying about being expelled from school, and a lot of people don't actually achieve when that happens to them. They can go down the wrong path. I was very close to doing that myself. I was hanging around with guys 5 or 6 years older than me that were going nowhere in life. And I remember when I walked out of the headmaster's office with my mum, and she looked down at me crying and was just like, son, what are you going to do now? Your life's over. You're finished. And my dad had left when I was 13 years of age. And I remember just thinking, actually, mum, don't worry. One day I'm going to make you so proud. This isn't the end for me. This is just the beginning. But I also realised very early on that the cavalry wasn't coming. Nobody was coming to save me. And actually, if I wanted to change my future, if I wanted to change my stars, change my destiny, I had to do something at 15 years of age that was going to change my future. And that's when I went to work for free for a local plumber for a year. And that got me off the streets. It got me into work. And that's where my career started. But that was a fantastic lesson for me. And since that day, I've never relied on anybody to help me. And I've been the one that's driven every decision that I've made.
So you set up your own company.
Yeah.
And it goes well?
Yeah, it went really, really well. I came back from Australia and my mum bought me Lord Sugar's book between Christmas and New Year. I read it cover to cover, bearing in mind being expelled. I hadn't read a book for so long, and I loved The Apprentice. For years I wanted to go on it, and I couldn't put it down, and it changed me that much that I saw how Lord Sugar had come from a council estate in London, had gone on to be able to build billionaire wealth in one lifetime. And I'd always believed that the successful people had something that I didn't. They were given an opportunity that I wasn't. And Lord Sugar's journey showed to me that no, actually, we can all achieve. We're all given the same start in life. Almost all of us are given the same start in life. And so that's what allowed me to quit my job, £50,000 a year at 22, take out a £15,000 loan, and go on to start Impregas off the back of his book. And then fast forward to the time I was 25, I was doing $500,000 a year, applied for The Apprentice, and that same Lord Billionaire, the book that I'd read of his, bought half of my company for £250,000.
Yeah. So how did you get on The Apprentice? I mean, you were clearly a Sugar fan, and he was clearly an inspiring figure to you, and that's terrific. And I think, you know, I hope that in turn you can be an inspiring figure.
I hope so too.
To people who don't come from privileged backgrounds, to say you can get on and achieve and do things. But how did you get on the programme?
So it was quite a funny story, actually. I came into my home on January the 9th, 2015. My business was doing well, but I'd levelled off. I was a plumber that had started a plumbing business. I didn't have any business education or training and no mentors. And I kind of lost my way and I didn't know what to do next. I needed mentorship. I needed cash for growth, and I wanted exposure to get my brand out there. And I came in that evening, 9 o'clock, got my phone out. Lord Sugar's Facebook page came up. The final call for The Apprentice, only 24 hours left to apply. And that very moment, I know the universe had sent me a sign. It was sent from the gods.
This was your moment.
This was my moment. And then as soon as I put my details in, it just escalated from there, took off from there, you know.
Were you a bit daunted going to do The Apprentice? Because it is, I mean, you know, the full glare, obviously Alan Sugar here, Donald Trump in America.
Yep.
And I mean, I watched the programme. I've watched many of the programmes, and I can see the nerves of many. I mean, were you slightly overawed by it?
I don't want to sound too overconfident, but I was so convinced that it was my destiny to win from the day that I started, that I knew that I was going on the right path. I remember when my mum dropped me off at the train station, she said, "See you soon, son." I said, "Next time you see me, I'm going to be the winner of the show." And I remember her looking back at me thinking, Joe, I know that you're confident, but you've got a challenge ahead of you, right? And I'll never forget the moment when I came out on the You're Hired show. It was the proudest moment of my life. I walked out on the stage and I saw my mum in the front row crying, so proud. Again. And I was just like, I've done this for you, Mum. I've shown you that I've turned my life around. This is your moment. Be proud of what I've achieved. She texted me like a year later, actually, kind of when the show was coming back on, and she said, "Who'd have thought you'd have won? Actually, Joe, you knew." And then I was like, boom, that was the time she realised that actually I'm not crazy, and that what I say I'm going to do, I will actually go on to achieve. So that was a pretty cool moment for me as well.
You see, it's clear to me that, well, I mean, obviously self-belief in spades, clearly, which is important.
Yeah.
Not too much, but it's important. But one thing that does strike me, you've had a difficult upbringing, school doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're out at 15. But the one thing that you had that I sense that perhaps a lot of people from that background and those difficulties don't have is you had something called ambition.
Yeah.
And do enough young people today have ambition?
No, they don't. And I think that many people from a challenging background, they don't have any shining examples of success. Now, I was very lucky to have my uncle. I owe a lot of my success to that man. He was a very, very successful businessman. And when I saw him once or twice a year, he would show up in these suits, in these brand new cars. And I looked at him and I thought, how does one man achieve that level of success versus my dad, who hadn't? And I thought, that is the guy that I'm going to be like. That's the guy that I want to become. And I saw that somebody very close to me had been able to, achieve with their lives.
It's a role model, really.
Yeah, it was a role model, 100%. Probably my first role model. And, that made me see that I could break the mold. As well as Lord Sugar's book and everything else, it made it more personal to me because he was my blood, he was my family. So that really, really helped. And I think there's not a lot of people that have relatable figures that they can look up to or aspire to become that can make it real for them because they know them, if that makes sense, right?
What is the ambition? What was the ambition? Was it to have those cars? Was it to have the flash holidays? Was it the material
It was to. My mum worked extremely hard for us growing up. She worked 3 or 4 jobs to pay for us and did everything. She committed and sacrificed, many, many years for us. And my first ambition in starting my business was to put my mum into retirement. I was able to achieve that when I was around 28 years of age. And that was one of my most proudest moments, actually. So it was for her first and foremost. But it literally was to prove a point, not to the world, but to myself, that I have so much potential to go on and become somebody so incredible that's going to change the world. My mum used to laugh and say, I say to her, the world's going to know my name. I'm going to leave a legacy for 1,000 years. I'm going to make an impact on this planet. There's only one opportunity to do so. And I still very much am on that same path. And so I just feel there's so much untapped potential in all of us. And I don't want to be laying on the deathbed, hopefully many years from now, because I intend to live to 100. Hopefully many years from now, looking back and saying,
why didn't I have a
regret?
Yeah, no,
Why didn't I do it? I can't allow that to happen,
No, I agree with that. I mean, I took a very different route to you, and mine was a political mission.
Yeah.
And I often people say, why on earth are you doing it? You must be mad. And I thought, years to come, if I don't have a go at this, I'll never ever forgive myself.
100%.
You see that chance in life, you've got to go for it. After The Apprentice, profile, you have 1 or 2 ups and downs with businesses, as everybody does.
Yeah.
But tell us where you are now and what you're doing, because it's really interesting.
So I train construction businesses how to grow, right? So after I got in business with Lord Sugar, I was in business with him for a couple of years. I bought him out, first apprentice ever, to do that. And then we were doing about $1.5 million a year at that time. I wanted to take it national. He wanted me to go slow. I wanted to go big. So I said, look, let me buy you out and I'll take on all of the risk. And if it goes wrong, it's on my shoulders, not on your record. And so I went on to build the largest independent boiler installation company in the UK. By the time I was 29 years of age, we had a 10 million turnover, 100 staff. And I was a plumber. I was a businessman running a trades business at that point, not a tradesman running a trades business. So my level of business acumen had leveled up, but also at the same time, I was learning as I was going and going through all this level of growth. It was having to acquire and learn all these skills made it very difficult. And I had to sell my business. It wasn't under the greatest circumstances. But when I exited in January of 2020 at 30 years of age, almost having to kind of start again, really, I decided to go into something that I was passionate about. That's training and development. And I looked at the construction industry and I said, what was it that allowed me to make mistakes in business? That was because I was a tradesman originally running a trades business. You know, at 22, I was an expelled from school, qualified plumber that took out a 15 grand loan and started a business. By the time I was 29, I had 100 people working for me, $1 million a month in sales, a national company. And to level up that much, I've acquired a level of skills through success and failure in business that can be taught to other businesses out there and give them the roadmap to success. Hairdressers start hairdressing businesses, accountants start accounting practices.
What is the one thing, I mean, you've got the experience.
Yeah.
You've had the ups, you've had the downs, and anybody in business does.
Yeah.
What is the one big thing that you can bring to a business?
Knowledge, skill, experience. Again, I've seen both success and failure. I've had success for so many years. At one point, everything I touched turned to gold. That when actually I had really challenging times in business, I was so underprepared for what the downside looked like that I hadn't had an opportunity to experience that. Now when I train businesses, I can look and see immediately where they're about to fall down. And at the Trade Mastermind, which is our construction company, in 2 years I've taken it from a startup in a pandemic to 3 million in sales. We've got 22 staff now. I've created 22 jobs in a pandemic in this training company. We're the first in the space in construction to train. So we're pioneering a new industry. We've acquired 1,500 construction clients across the UK. We've launched a recruitment business, Trade Recruit. We've launched a marketing agency recently, Valente Media, and the Trade Mastermind is just going from strength to strength. We've taken those businesses under the Trade Group now, and I intend to take that hopefully to £100 million valuation in the next 3 years by the time I'm 35.
You're not short of ambition. You're not short of ambition, which is a good thing, I think. Finally, I want a word from you to people out there. They could be younger people, they could be middle-aged people who are having a look at a business idea, thinking of taking a risk, thinking of having a go. What should they do? How should they make that decision?
Make it. Do it.
Just do it.
Go for it. Just do it. Screw it and do it. You know, Richard Branson says, screw it, let's do it. You've got to go for it. If you're young, if you're middle-aged, if you're old, you've got to go for it. You've got one shot, one opportunity, and what you said, take a risk. People are afraid to risk. They're protecting the little that they have, thinking that that's their world. But actually, success isn't difficult. It really isn't. But people are afraid of their potential more than the failure, I believe.
There you go. They're the words from Joe Valente. We welcome you on Talking Pints, and thank you. There's a bit of inspiration for you there. Right, we're there for the end of the show. It's Barrage the Farage, where you send in your questions and I try and answer them sight unseen. A viewer asks, would you be surprised if they tried to push a fourth or fifth vaccine by September 22? No, not at all. I really wouldn't. The Israelis are pushing the fourth vaccine now. I can't see any end to it, which is why I was very pleased to see Sir Andrew Pollard, the boss of a JCVI, yesterday saying, hey, we need to have a think before we start giving out the fourth vaccine. Clearly, the booster didn't work out for Sir Keir so well, did it? I am still on the booster. You know, the jury's out as far as I'm concerned still. James asked, have you ever changed your views based on any interviews you've conducted on GBNews? Well, it's only been a few months. I don't think any of us change our views 100%, but I do think the experience of interacting with people perhaps makes you think about things just a little differently. Gives you a different edge, different perspective. And so, yeah. But has anybody at GBNews turned me around completely? No. But what Joe's taught me tonight is that I think I've probably, financially, not taken enough risks in life. Another viewer asked, last question, time's running out. What is an appropriate punishment for politicians who repeatedly lie to the public? Re-election, normally, because that's what they do. Look, I think Iraq war was prosecuted entirely wrongly. I think it would have been better for all concerned if Blair hadn't accepted this at this moment in time. But he did. Coming up next, it's going to be Mark Stein. First, though, let's have a look at that cold weather outside.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It is getting cold out there. It's going to be frosty tonight and frosty in the morning. A few fog patches as well. Wet weather then spreads east tomorrow with some snow mixed in, mostly over the hills. That's courtesy of this area of low pressure, but it's not with us yet. A bump in the isobars, a ridge of high pressure, meaning clear skies, and those winds continuing to ease down. So light winds, clear skies this time of night means a frost, a widespread frost forming already, and temperatures are only going to continue to fall. There'll be some fog patches forming as well, of course, parts of the Midlands and southern England too. But the main thing will be those temperatures below freezing, even in towns and cities, well below in rural spots. So a very cold start to Thursday, and then things turn wet across Northern Ireland, some snow on the hills, and then as this wet weather arrives across Scotland, some significant snow likely on the higher routes here, also across parts of Northern England. Some of the higher routes not very pleasant for a time through the course of tomorrow afternoon. We'll turn back to rain as we go through the day. Mostly rain at low levels and across the southwest, where it will actually eventually get to double figures. But East Anglia in the southeast staying cold, but largely dry until the rain pushes in here late afternoon into the evening. It's going to be followed by showers, and those showers turning wintry once more. So we do have another Met Office yellow warning for snow and ice from Thursday evening into Friday morning across northwest England, parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. The snow could really start to build up here, and as temperatures won't be as low, but still getting close to freezing, could lead to some icy conditions, particularly for Friday morning's commute as the showers continue to come in. Mostly rain at low levels and on the coast, but certainly over any kind of smallish hills, we will see some snow building up during Friday morning in those showers. A scattering of showers elsewhere, but for many central and eastern parts, Friday dry and bright with sunny spells, but it will be cold. Temperatures again below average and feeling colder with the wind.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.